Hey folks, welcome to the Leeds View, the breakdown, and a slightly different video than we normally do at the breakdown. We've got an international break in a couple of days' time. This has been recorded before the Nottingham Forest game. It's been recorded late in the evening because I can't get some things out of my head. So I wanted to do this and have a look at things in a little bit more detail. There's a couple of questions here that have been floating around the internet and comments that have been made by lots and lots of people. And I wanted to step back from the noise of everyone's opinion, including mine, and have a little bit more of a holistic kind of look at this and see what is actually going on with Leeds. Is there a chance that Leeds can stay in the Premier League? And if they can, what do they need to do? And the questions that are on the board there are all the questions and all the comments that are floating around the internet at this moment in time. Are Leeds playing to their strengths? Are there things that Leeds aren't doing right now that if they were to do them in the morning could make Leeds more difficult to play against, can stop Leeds from conceding so many goals? Is the squad good enough? I've seen some people say the squad isn't good enough. I don't believe that. And I always believe you can get a tune out of a team. If they change the manager in the morning, a different manager will come in with a different ethos, a different style, different approach, and will use the squad differently, and then maybe they get a tune out of it. But that's the other question. Is it right to ask for managerial change? So if you're a Farke in or a Farke out, for the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'd like you to step away from that opinion and meet me in the middle. And let's look at this and see, well, is it just a case that if Daniel Farke was to tweak a couple of things right now, this all sorts itself out? And I'll give you reasons why both sides of the coin probably make sense, and then why there is a middle ground on this as well. But then that will dictate which direction everybody's thoughts will go in the next few months. And what could Leeds United do differently? Is there something that we can do to sort out this couple of issues that we've got, accentuate the positives, hide the negatives a little bit, play to our strengths a little bit more? And there is a lot of stuff that has popped up. Conor McGilligan's done some videos on this that are interesting. Joe Wayman has done some form guide information on this to say it's not as bad as it might look. Paul Brooker's done some videos on this as well, looking at the deeper statistics of games as well. And they're all really valid points, and they're all very interesting videos. And they all attack it from a slightly different perspective. So what if we brought all that together? And what if we had a little bit more of a look at the entirety? So we've got a couple of points to talk about, and then I'm going to bring you into the tactics board. So bear with me. This could be a bit choppy, changey compared to normal. So there's a couple of weird cuts in this. Again, just bear with me because I've got lots of screens open. It's late at night, and I'm going through a bit of a mad mode at the moment. But I did want to get these thoughts down while they were fresh in my head. And I've had a look back at a couple of Leeds games this season, the Newcastle game and the Brighton game being the two specific ones that I really want to focus on to show the very different styles that Leeds approached both those games in, and then the different results off the back of that. And whatever you put out there is the result that you get. And if you change how you approach things, you might get a different result as well. So to start off with, this is the first question. Are Leeds United right now, at this moment in time, after the Brighton game, currently playing to their strengths? And we need to talk about recruitment. There's been a lot of criticism of the recruitment, and I want to speak a bit about that and the playing style that Leeds have currently adopted. Leeds United's recruitment during the summer, we can go back to that time and talk about the comments that were being made by Leeds, and it was about physicality. Leeds had learned from managers of the past who said they didn't recruit physical enough players. So Leeds went out of their way and they signed pretty much every single player over 6 foot, big, strong, physical players. Nearly every single player was over 6 foot or bang on 6 foot. Gabby Goodwin's 5'11", so he's just skimming the edge of it. But they targeted this, which means they targeted a style of play. And in the first couple of seasons, it was aiming for the more physical players. It was height-focused football. It was more direct. And it appeared to be working at time. But over the last couple of weeks, Leeds seem to have reverted back to what we did in the Championship, a more possession-based style, playing out from the back. And I don't think it necessarily plays to Leeds' strengths right now. Playing out from the back in a position where maybe the players aren't good enough at this level for that. It's a valid comment and a valid point. Maybe the squad isn't good enough for that, is a valid point. So why would you continue to do that? You've got to find another way of playing. And there's always another way of playing. Direct play was working for Leeds United. We were playing off the big man. We were compact. We were aggressive. We were physical. And that was more so in the Everton and in the Newcastle game. But there were elements of that as well in the first half against West Ham. There were elements of that against Fulham. There were elements of that against against Wolverhampton Wanderers, sorry. But there were then games where we went away completely and we decided to go back to the championship football of possession-based playing out from the back. And it isn't really working for this Leeds United side because, again, maybe this Leeds United side weren't recruited for. And again, that was a point that Connor made in one of his videos about the recruitment. The style of play is interesting and the results are interesting as well. Joe Wayman's video on the form that Leeds are in and maybe it not being as bad as it is. And if you look at the league table, we're probably in and around where we should be in the table, or at least where we expect it to be at this point of the season. It's the run of games ahead that has everybody a bit spooked, and that's probably a valid point as well. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's also an interesting talking point as well, getting a lot of criticism for not scoring a lot of goals, but he's not exactly in the last couple of games got a huge amount of support. And I'll show you what I mean by that on the tactics board in a couple of minutes. We are going to the tactics board in a couple of minutes. But when you've got number 9, I'm a 6'4", I was a number 9, and I regularly played on my own up front. And the games where I was more frustrated than annoyed were the games where the ball was being pumped up to me and I was expected to flick it on or knock it down. There was nobody around me, no one to knock it onto, and you just lose possession. You give it back and the opposition come forward. And then it's wave after wave after wave of attack. And I think he's done a really good job in the air, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I think he's done a good job of holding the ball up. And Lucas Mecha would do the exact same, and I've lobbied for either of the two of them. But that's the profile of player that Leeds United have gone for. So you've got to play to the strengths of that player. But he isn't being supported right now. The wingers are too wide. They're not getting narrow enough. There's no one playing off him. There's no one coming short. The midfield is too deep. The gaps between the lines, as they say, have grown over time. And that needs to be fixed and that needs to be addressed. And it was, by the way, something we had already addressed earlier on this season. The midfield for times for me is too deep. I know we play with 3 central defensive midfielders, but they have been too deep at times. And Leeds need to sort that out. But the starting line for me needs to be higher. And again, I'll show you in a couple of seconds what I mean by that. Is this squad good enough? And that brings you straight back to the first question of, well, it depends. Are you playing to the strengths of the players that you've brought in? Leeds have brought in tall, physical players. If you play out from the back along the deck, then you've got to start Pascal Struijk. But then you lose something on the box defending. So therefore, if you're not going to play out from the back and play direct, then you play Yacobiel. But you can't swap them over. And that's where there's horses for courses and maybe more room for flexibility in terms of rotation of the squad. If you're going to play out from the back, then you play out Tanaka and you play Pascal Struijk. But if you don't want to play out from the back, if you want to go more direct, then you play Yacobiel and maybe you play Sean Longstaff in there as well. So there are options there depending on how you want to play. But I do think that these players are good enough. They've shown at times this season they're very much at this level. Some of the players have had brilliant games. Ethan Ampadu has been phenomenal in some games this season. In other games, I've looked at him and he's marking space when players are running free around the pitch. So it depends. It all depends. And it all goes back to me, to that style part. There's a line in football, myself and my brother talk about this an awful lot, and it's you buy the players to suit the style you want to play. And Leeds maybe did that in the summer, but they now changed the style. So if you don't have those bodies, if Daniel Farke doesn't get those 2 creative players that he wants, then you've got to play the style to fit the players that you have right now. And that's probably where the more experienced lower end Premier League managers like Sean Dyche and that come into it. They look at what they've got and they play a style that fits that, because that gets you the most out of that group that you've got. And you're not trying to squeeze orange juice out of a lemon. You're getting exactly what you're planning for. So there's that part to this. So for me, we've got to go back to basics here. We've got to go back to being more direct, because that suits the players that Leeds United have right now. Maybe it's not the prettiest football in the world. Maybe it's overly direct, but it fits and it's competitive and it works and it is effective, I suppose is the word I'm looking for here in that. The third question there is it right to want managerial change at this point in the season, 10 games in? But again, that depends on the approach. The easiest route for Leeds United and the route with the least amount of instability is to retain the manager you've got. Hope we change the style we approach the game in, because that means you're not upsetting the apple cart behind the scenes. That's the idea. But if you can't do that and the manager doesn't change to play a style to maximize what he's got from the squad, or keeps doing the same thing over and over again, then you come straight back to that question of, well, let's get a manager in that will be more flexible, that will do this. But Daniel Farke has shown this season that he can be flexible. Daniel Farke has shown this season that he can play a system and a style to suit the players effectively and with success. So it is very much there. So depending on what side of the defense you're on, again, meet me in the middle on this. It all comes back to what the style of football is and what we're trying to achieve with that squad. And then the fourth question: could we do things differently, or can we do things better? We can. Let's start playing to our strengths. Lucas Perry, his long-range kicking is very accurate, and the statistics back that up. His short-range game, not so much. So maybe start looking at maybe going more direct with him. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is winning most of the battles in the air, and Lucas Meche will also do the same, and he did the same in the first 2 games of the season. So play direct to him. But you've got to get those wingers off the touchline and narrower and playing off him. One beyond, one short. Get your midfielder, at least one, up closer to him to try and receive the ball if he lays it off, sets it, or heads it down. You've got to start 10 yards higher. That defensive line has got to push up a little bit in order, if mistakes happen, you're not on the edge of your penalty area, and that's important. Press a little bit higher when we haven't got the balls. And their kickouts, push them back on. Again, we've done that this season, shown we can. Do things a bit quicker. Lucas Perry's main attribute is his long throw. And Leeds don't utilise that enough because we come out too slowly, and the wingers are already set by the time our centre-backs come out with it. They've both gone on, they've stopped, they're being marked. If you can get the ball to your keeper and then break quickly, throw that ball into the space, you can capitalise, and the counterattacks can have a big impact. And again, it appeals to a strength of your keeper. Don't play out from the back. Players aren't ready for it. They're not set for it. They weren't purchased for it. They're not set up to do that. So you've got to change that as well. They're marked. They're pressed high. Brighton, Arsenal, West Ham in the second half against Leeds pressed us high, and we're pressed. Unfortunately, we're not very good on the edge of our box under that press. So don't do it. Why do something that you've got a weakness in? Bypass it. Go past them. One midfielder needs to get closer to DCL, as I said. Look for those knockdowns, and the fullbacks then overlapping those wingers as well. So if there is a flick on for Dan James or Willie Nanto or Noah Okafor to run onto, you've got that wide option of the wingers overlapping as well. Then you get your striker back in the box for cutbacks and crosses, and that's when you can capitalize on your strengths. But we'll go over to tactics board now, and we'll have a little bit more of a look at what I'm talking about here. So the first thing I want to look at here is Leeds United's setup from opposition's goal kick. This was how Leeds set up against Everton. We didn't let them get out from the back. We forced them to kick it long, where we again had the height advantage and the physicality advantage, and we're able to win those second balls. And Leeds were in a position then to come forward. We made it uncomfortable for them. It was aggressive. It was high. And in the last couple of weeks, Leeds have started to drop off that and allowed teams to play out from the back. And it hasn't helped us particularly well. Leeds have been in their own half and have allowed the opposition to get to the halfway line before they pick their passes. And we've dropped into a mid and low block at times, which hasn't always been successful for Leeds. So for me, one of the first things Leeds need to do is our setup from dead balls, from our kickouts and from their kickouts. And they're two of the main areas that I want to highlight. And this is the first one. What happened here was they tried to pass it out. It ended up going back to Jordan Pickford, who kicked the ball over to the left-hand side here and basically gave Leeds an opportunity to pick up second balls. And the second ball in the Premier League is really, really important. The second image is Leeds United's goal kicks. And this is where I want to spend a bit more time and have a look at this in a bit more detail. This is Leeds United kick out against Newcastle United. Lucas Perry in goal and Lucas Meche up front. Look at the Leeds United backline there. They're up, they're high, and they've all pushed across to one side, and we're looking for the kick out. What it looked like from the other part of that, so when you move the pitch on a little bit, look how compact it is over there. Lucas Meche is there, Anton Stach is there, Sean Longstaff is there, Ilya Groove is there. Now, Ilya Groove obviously won't be in the team every single week, so that's a Ao Tanaka or an Ethan Ampadu or whoever else goes into that position. So in that position right there, you've got opportunities to win the first ball with an aerial flick. You're close to your winger. You can get those flick-ons in behind and attack, which does happen. And if you don't win the header, the ball drops and you win the second ball. You've got players around there to compete for second balls. And that might be a bit scrappy, but it's effective and it can work and it can help you. You've got to stop decent sides having space to play in, because that's where they thrive. If you limit that space, you limit their opportunities and you eliminate their creativity. And then the kick out's taken, and there we see it there. There was the flick on from that position, and it was from Anton Stach at that point. You've Willie Nanto right behind him. Lucas Meche is also pushed on. Look how compact Dan James is. The wingers are tucked right in for those second balls, so you can break quickly when you pick them up. And if it's not won by him, you've got Gruev, Goodmunson, and Sean Longstaff in there who can pick up those second balls up against two Newcastle players. You have an overload. And then if it does go through up front for Newcastle, Leeds have three players there that can deal with that situation. So I think this is really important, and I think this is how Leeds realistically should be setting up to get the best out of their players. Now, here's the flip side of it. This is Leeds United's goal kick setup versus Brighton last weekend. And this is actually kicked off from Yacobiel passes the ball to Lucas Perry, and they're pressed by four Brighton players. Leeds have only got an option of four including the goalkeeper, and Lucas Perry then has to chip the ball into space. It goes into an area where Leeds have to fight with Minte and Goodmunson are fighting for a second ball. Leeds don't win that second ball. And that was a repetition in the game against Brighton and a real problem. That highlighted an awful lot of Leeds' weaknesses with the other goal kick highlights an awful lot of Leeds' strengths. This is what that kick out against Newcastle looked on a tactics board. Look how compact it is. Look how high up it is. Look at the space in the park as well. Look at the options Leeds had for second balls. And it actually upset Newcastle quite a lot. There was a lot of finger pointing from Newcastle players to try and get Leeds to pick up Leeds players. So they weren't focused on the kick out. They were still trying to organise themselves as the kick out was being taken by Lucas Perry. And he has a monster kick out. He can go so far with it. So why not try and exploit that? Again, versus the Brighton one, this is it. It invited so much pressure on you. Were pressed nearly inside your own penalty area. There wasn't a lot of options for second balls unless it goes to Ethan Ampadu. And again, you have Jorginho and Rutter there as well. You can pick it up. Ignore the numbers on these, by the way. They're just 1 to 11 because that's the tactics board that allows me. So, but again, Leeds wingers are high and wide and they're marked. So they're stationary and they're already marked. So, and look at Dominic Calvert-Lewin in the middle there, completely isolated, surrounded by 3 players. What is he supposed to do in that situation? Even if he does win a header, the only option is a knockdown, by which stage Newcastle midfielder probably got back in around to try and cover that position as well. So when you put them side by side, it's very different, which shows Leeds have had an ability to play differently this season. The kickouts against Newcastle played to Leeds United strengths. Our height advantage, the physicality in the middle of the park and second balls. It didn't invite any pressure on Leeds because we were on the halfway line. It allowed for that physicality element and it gave us options on second balls. And more importantly, if there was a lost ball there or a mistake, there was time to recover because there was space. When you look at the Brighton game, that kick out invites pressure on your 18-yard line. It highlighted Leeds United weaknesses, which were our ability to play out from the ball at this level. We could do in the Championship, but at this level, the mistakes were punished quickly because if they win the ball on the 18-yard line, which they did a few times, they nearly got an attack away straight away, and it causes issues on the second ball because the second ball will likely drop around the edge of your 18-yard line. So there are contrasting styles and differences there, but there's very much a way to play. We'll go into the full tactics board now and I'll show you what I'm talking about in terms of actually playing out with the ball. So here we are on the tactics board. That's the Brighton set. But what I wanted to focus on here was go back to the Newcastle one as well and just talk about Dominic Calvert-Lewin and the setup from Leeds United as well. So I'll just put these into position real quick. Again, just ignore the numbers on this. It's 1 to 11 because that's the tactics board's ability. So looking at a standard 4-3-3 up against, say, a normal 4-2-3 one that's played in the Premier League, this is what you would want to see from a starting position. Leeds currently tend to start with their wingers like that and their midfielders pretty much like this, pretty deep. And again, Dominic Calvert-Lewin then just gets swamped up and isolated with 2 centre-backs who can go and cover him. One can cover any flick-ons, one can mark him, players can step in front of him, and it shuts off what he can do. What you'd like to see from Leeds doing and what they can do to make this a little bit different and how you want to maximize a big, tall, lanky number 9 is that you want to get your wingers in nice and close and you want to get one of your midfielders close to him, push one of your midfielders on, and ideally just get that line up a little bit higher. Not too high. You don't have to go over the halfway line. You don't have to overcommit. So what it does mean then is if a ball does go in here, if Calvert-Lewin wins it, that ball can go into space. That ball can go into space. It can come off Calvert-Lewin and it can go into areas here. You want to get a runner beyond. You've got a second option there coming into the penalty area. You've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin there. Your midfield can get out then and press. Your midfield can get up all the way. And you can bring attackers into the penalty area and get crosses in. And again, what you would also want to see is the fullbacks getting on here as well. That's from a flick-on situation. If it was a case that I went into Dominic Calvert-Lewin's feet, it's slightly different. But ball comes in, he can hold that ball up. If he holds it up, ball comes into Dominic Calvert-Lewin's feet. If he holds it up there, you want a midfielder close to him for a setback. So this is on the ground. You can set it back, and then you want your runners that way and that way, in between the gaps in the lines for balls to be played into space for them to run onto it. You've got options for second ball then as well. And from a deeper kind of position, if Leeds are pushed back, say, a little bit deeper, you couldn't get that high. That's okay as well. There's options here. You drop your 2 midfielders in like this. You put your number 8 in there, your 9, and your 2 wingers. Just tuck in again, like a little Christmas tree. Howard Wilkinson used to play an inverted Christmas tree formation. But if it goes up to his feet here, he can lay it back into midfield. You can get that run there for that ball into space. Same with the other winger coming across here. But you also want to get your fullbacks involved in this as well for overlaps. So if it's a case that it goes into Calvert-Lewin, it's set back and it goes into one of your wingers, if they get pressed, you bring your midfielders up and you're looking for second balls and third man runs. You get set back into an area again and played into space for attackers. There's ways to play it. I'm not saying that this is easy or will be easy in every single game, but the very bare minimum that you would want to see from this is Leeds United giving themselves opportunities to keep the ball, to be effective, and again, maximize the strengths of all the players that they've got right now, because playing both wingers like this, wide and high, isolates your striker completely. Again, he just gets swamped out. And again, when we do that, the midfield tends to be like this as well. So there's huge gaps between the lines there. It's not what you want to see. So yeah, a bit of a longer video, something a little bit different. I could be miles off on this. Somebody will tell me that I am, but I did want to look at it and think, can we do things just a little bit differently? Can we play to our strengths? And I think we can. I think there are things that Leeds can do. I think we've done it already this season. We did it against Newcastle, and that highlighted that. Play to the strengths, get the long balls in to your tall, big, physical players. And then that brings out the positives of your Anton Stacks, your Sean Longstaffs, amplifies the speed and effectiveness of your wingers. No, Okafor's 6 foot and tall as well. And then Dominic Calvert-Lewin comes into his own on what he is there to do. Because right now, at the moment, the last 2 games, completely isolated. Leeds are way too deep, and that's caused problems. So for me, that's what I would change. That's how I think Leeds can get out. It's just my opinion. You can let me know your opinion in the comments. Love to hear other people's different versions of this as well. I don't think it's simply as black and white as the squad's not good enough, or we can't do this, or the manager's not good enough. I think there's grey area in this, and I think we can look at it because we've done it already this season, which means you've got the opportunity to do it again. I'd love to see what everybody else's thoughts on this are coming into the weekend. It's just a bit of a thought process more than anything else. Wanted to get this off my chest and out of my head. So there it is. I vomited it onto you. Now you can do what you want with that. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on it. Let me know what you think. But yeah, there is things Leeds can do. This squad, for me, can be good enough if played the right way. And if we play to our strengths, I think Leeds United could be fine and could stay in this Premier League for another year at least. And then strengthen the areas that we need to strengthen in the creative side of the pitch. Or get it done in January and save us all the hassle. But we'll get to another video we'll do over the international break of, do Leeds need to make sacrifices to the squad in January in order to strengthen other areas, and have that discussion as well. Outside that, folks, thanks for watching. We'll have normal news during the international break as well. Let's hope we can beat Nottingham Forest. I'll talk to you soon. See you later.